Welcome to Car Shenanigans. In this episode I'm going to be looking at some modifications to do to my 2.7 engine before it goes back in my Porsche box there. So these are my RS6 KO4 turbos that I'm going to try and get mounted up on the engine. I'm in two minds about using these stainless steel exhaust manifolds. I've had a look inside them with a borescope and they're not pretty at all. I've got an old one that I cut open years back, and you can see, look at that for a join. You just put one pipe inside the other, welded round, so you've got awful flow there. It's utter shite. They're that's rusting stainless steel apparently. So I don't know whether I'm gonna chop these up, because these ones are the same inside. I've checked. I might modify them, or might just retain the standard exhaust manifolds. I'm not particularly bothered about location. I've got space at the side, so I could move the turbos out a bit, which might make it easier for getting the actuators on and all that sort of stuff. Because these turbos, I'm going to use the actuators I was using on my old KO4 turbos, which were Nissan Pulsar GTIR actuators that were modified to fit. So there's one there. The reason I went with those is they got a stronger spring in them, so it holds the wastegate closed for longer. I think the original actuators, if you push a lot of boost, they start opening up on you. So you can see what it's going to take to get them on. I don't want to be cutting these housings like is usually done on the 2.7. It's just because I can't weld aluminium, and seems a shame. I think I'll be able to make it work without having to modify them. One thing I might look into is this throttle body. That's the original throttle body. That one is off a Cayenne turbo, and then this is quite a nice T-piece that go into it. That might prove to be more hassle than it's worth. Depends on clearance for power steering pump and other stuff, because the power steering pump and the throttle body is up tight in the car, so I'm not gonna do things that are gonna make my life a pain in the arse in the future, so we'll see about that. I've removed the after-run pump that sat in the V, and just running a coolant pipe just to join it up, because I'm not going to run the standard fan controller anymore, so I won't have any way of controlling that after-run pump. And if you let the car cool down before switching it off, it's not an issue anyway. So should be interesting. Fingers crossed I can get it all nice and tidy. I'm going to do all the fabrication now with the engine out of the car, because I know pretty much what space I got and where. And then so the turbos won't fit with the manifolds as they are. There's like various bits that come out, and they're hitting the manifold and hitting the start motor as well. And it's the same on the other side, that's also fouling. So I am going to modify them. So the plan is, because I'd rather modify these shitty stainless steel manifolds than hack up the compressor housings on the turbo. The plan is I'm going to cut this weld off as close as I can, because you can see there's like one pipe inside another pipe, and then I'll take it out so I can get a nice merge and then I'll beat that back into shape so it flows nice. And I'll change the angle of this. I'm going to sort of tweak it down a little bit, and I might change the angle this flange sits on there as well. So yeah, that's the plan. I normally do all my cutting outside because it makes such a mess, but I'm a bit ringed off, so I'm thinking I'm going to do it all down in the pit to try and stop the car getting covered in metal dust. So this is the plan now. I've cut the manifold off. I've trimmed the pipe that was inside out, so you haven't got that horrible lip like that. So I'll be welding that on there, and the plan is the turbo is going to sit sort of roughly like this. I'm using this flange is off that side because I had the spare set, so I've turned it 90 degrees and I had to re-drill it so it bolts up. I'm thinking the turbo is going to be a little bit further back and it's probably going to foul. There's a cross member that runs across underneath the gearbox and joins the suspension arm carriers together, so I might end up having to refabricate that once it's all in. But it's not at the end of the world. So I've got the manifold all finished now. I ended up going back to the flange that was designed for this side. It just seemed to work nicer. So although my welding's not the prettiest, it's better inside than it was originally. So I've got the Pulsar GTIR actuator mounted. It's quite close to the starter motor, but it's all good. I had to cut the bracket off the original actuator and then weld it onto this one. To connect it to my charge cooler, just need a simple 90 degree silicone pipe, 50mm to 60mm reducer. So it's all looking good. The height on the turbo is slightly lower than the other side, which is still the original setup. Now I had to modify the car a little bit to clear this bit. I had to just make a little cut into the shell, beat it up and re-weld it just to give me a bit of clearance. Because I've mounted the turbo lower, if I do the same on the other side, that should help there with the clearance. It's pretty much in line with the other turbo, so I'm happy with that. I'm sure when it comes to bolting it on the car I'll discover issues, but for now I'm happy. I originally welded it up and I couldn't get the oil feed pipe on, so I decided I'd cut it off and start again, because I don't really want to modify the oil feed pipe. I've modified one in the past and I found it would constantly just seep a tiny little bit of oil where it's been welded, because it's such a thin piece of steel you can't really get much penetration into it. So I wanted to avoid that, so I've connected that up. All the other lines are going to need to be made from scratch though. Nothing's close to fitting. It's looking good height wise for the exhaust. It's roughly where the back box will sit, so straight run there in theory. So all good so far. coachman, nice and compact. I'm quite pleased with how it's turning out. So yeah, now I got to do the other side, so hopefully it'll take a lot less time now I've done the one side. The one thing that's always bugged me about this car is the air filters. I've always had them mounted low. I've never been particularly pleased with that. I think I've come up with a good plan now. I want to run them in the side vents on the car. So now the turbos are in a slightly different position and the manifolds are different, I've got a bit of space, so I'm planning on getting a 90-degree that'll sit snugly. That's 2.5 inches, the one I need is 2 inches. So I'll run an air inlet up here, up over there, across, so I can't run it straight across there because I've got a coolant expansion bottle there, so I'll run it up, across, and then by there is where it'll join up for the side vent. I'm still going to be running these air filters though. That's about as big as you can fit in the side vents. I could open them up, it's just plastic housings, but I don't want to risk not sealing them properly and then getting water sort of trapped in the sills or anything like that, so it's best not to mess about too much. But I think that'll be better for cold air. The only downside is I might get less airflow into the engine bay, but they won't completely block the side vents, so I think it's a good plan. Whilst looking at these turbos, I noticed the turbine wheel didn't look original. You can see the edge of the blades are rounded off. I think it's a bit of an old school term for turbo modifying cut back blades. So knowing that, I tried to do a bit of research into what the specs on these turbos are, because they're clearly not standard rebuilds like I thought they were when I'd bought them. I've got the serial numbers for these turbos, so I did ring Midlands Turbo to get the specs on them. They can't search their database from serial numbers, only from postcodes, and I don't know, originally ordered them, so they weren't much use. I don't know why they'd bother with serial numbers if you can't search for them. But anyway, I've taken the exhaust housing off, and you can see they're definitely rounded off. So the trade-off with that is you get slower spool up, but you'll flow more, so you'll get less back pressure. Now, having a close look, I can't get this compressor housing off. I've been trying, and it's moving freely, but I just can't lift it off. There's some sort of sealant on it, and I'm worried that if I leave it off, it touches the wheel. I don't want to damage it. It's not worth damaging it to find out what it is. But if you look closely inside, I can see reflections. I get a torch. I can see machining marks reflected from the underside of the blades. So you see it there. Looks to me like that is a billet compressor wheel. So it's definitely not standard. I measured up the exhaust turbine, and the sizes of that are standard sizes. So I don't know, I think they're definitely not standard, so I guess they're going to be good for more power. Don't know if I need them to be good for more power, to be honest. I wonder what they're spec for. Could be quite a lot, which might mean I'd need to rev my engine to the moon to actually make the most out of them. I think the standard red line is 6,700, something like that. I think you can go to about 7.5 on a standard valve train. So there's a bit of headroom there. I can't wait to see how they perform. Another example of these manifolds being shiny shit. Doesn't even bolt up. Fouls that boss. So I'm gonna have to mark it and put a little dent in the pipe to clear that, and then I'll cut it just this side of the weld like I did on the other one and tidy up the inside of it. Rubbish. This side's now done. It's a lot quicker than the other side once I knew the best way to go about it. So that's the actuator swapped over from the old turbo. That's been re-welded at a different angle. All lines up nice. Just need to put the bolt on that and set the tension. Done that, it got a nice angle for a hose. The turbo's lower than it was before. Before it would have been up about by there. So should be good. The only slight issue maybe is they're a little bit wider than they were before. They were tucked in closer to the gearbox before. I've measured the best I can, kind of working out where things are going to be sitting in the car, and I think it's fine. But I'm only going to know for sure when I try and put the engine in. So fingers crossed. I might need to do a few little bits of clearance on the shell, but I don't think so. So I'm quite pleased with how they've come out. I wouldn't have been able to have fitted these turbos with the standard manifolds, so it was worth me buying these stainless ones and hacking them up. That's my EGT port. Now originally it would have been coming out that direction, so there is a chance that might foul, because you've got the length of the sensor sticking out of it as well, so we'll see on that one. So, good progress. I've been measuring up and I don't think this turbo is going to fit. It needs to be moved over tighter into the gearbox like I got it sitting now. I think it's going to hit the suspension subframe on the car. I've been measuring it as best I can. It's a bit crude, but I think it's going to foul by here, and obviously this is not something I can mess about with. So I need to try and shift it in. So it's a shame I completely welded up the manifold before I figured this out. So I'll have to cut it off and move it over, because I don't really want to get the engine into the pit and offer it up and then find stuff's not going to fit, because the engine needs to be far back. I can't easily get in and out of the pit. So yeah, it'll be a bit of a disaster, so I need to do my best to make sure it's going to fit straight in first try. That's this side modified. Turbo is tucked in a lot more than it was. I've measured that and I'm pretty sure they're going to be fine when I put the engine in now. In the next video I'm going to put the engine back in the car, and hopefully it all pans out how I want it to and there's no disasters with things not fitting. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. Bye.